Hi there. Welcome to my channel. My name's Randy. I go by the Autistic Grandpa, and I was diagnosed with autism and being on the spectrum in my 60s and not too long ago. And I started doing these videos as a way of saying to you, if you suspect you might be on the spectrum, or if you have a loved one that you suspect might be, how my journey has been through learning. As I say almost every time, I don't pretend to know much about autism. I've been trying to learn along the way, so I'm certainly not going to try to diagnose you. But on this video, the big question is, if I could have known earlier in my life that I was on the spectrum, would I have wanted to know? And how would that have made my life turn out different? But first, let me tell you how I've been with my diagnosis lately and how it's affected me. I haven't told many people, and I think that's I've just family and a few acquaintances. But I think that's because I don't want to be judged by it. Now, when I say judged by it, I don't want to use that to define who I am. I want people to know me as Randy and as they always have. I've also been able to accept the fact, early on, I said that I always felt in life like a puzzle piece that couldn't fit in the puzzle. There was one piece, one hole left in the puzzle, but my piece didn't fit. And I always saw that as that I was defective. But now, after having the diagnosis, I realize my piece came from the factory that way. And I might not fit in this puzzle, but there's other puzzles out there I do fit in. And that's made me feel better about that. It's helped me to accept who I am. About a month ago, I was at an event where there's 30 or 40 people. And as the room started to dwindle down, I found myself sitting alone. That isn't unusual through my life, but most of my life, that would have made me feel very conspicuous. But not this time. I sat back and reflected, that's how I'm wired. And this is who I am. And that was really a good thing. Also, knowing this, it makes me approach some different things in my life. Um, for example, I said in one of my previous videos, I had a really hard time with eating noises and food and slurping and stuff like that. After my diagnosis, and I realized this is who I am, I realized that it wasn't other people's problems, it's mine. And so I have to deal with it. I can't blame those around me who may be just eating normal for my disdain for it. So whatever I have to do, if I have to leave the room, if I have to plug my ear, whatever, but it's not their problem. And that's been a real growth thing for me since my diagnosis. Along those ways, I've always been a know-it-all, and I don't mean a know-it-all like I have to tell everybody, but I believe that the way I think about certain things is the only way to do it. For example, um, parenting. I've always thought I had all the answers to parenting. Although if you talk to my children, you'd find out that they wouldn't agree with that. But there's I always had problems with kids with parents with small kids who gave parenting advice, but because I'm going, hey, when your kids are 4 or 5, they're easy and they're going to do everything you say because you're God to them. But let them get to be teenagers and grown adults, and you'll find out that parenting is not an exact science. So all of a sudden, now that I know that that's part of my diagnosis, that I feel like I have to know the right way, it's been good to know that other people can have their opinions and it's just as right for them. Kind of a funny one is I I've always hated big trucks, and I'm not talking about the typical Ford F-150 that's you pull up beside. I'm talking about the kind that when you pull up beside them at the traffic light, you can almost look under them. And in the parking lot, they take up 2 or 3 spaces. And some ways they have their own zip code. They're so big. They should have made this song, I hate big trucks and I cannot lie. But after my diagnosis, I've started to be a little more patient, realize, well, there must be a lot of people that like big trucks or they wouldn't exist. And just because I don't doesn't mean that's the only way to look at life. And it's okay for others to have their likes and their ways. Some of the negative results that I've come across is it's easier for me to say that's the way I am, and therefore maybe I shouldn't try. Oh, that's the way I am. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I don't believe that's acceptable. There's a difference between saying that's the way I'm wired, so I've got to figure out how to do it differently, and just saying, why try? Because that's the way I am. There's a saying that I've always liked. It's up to us to be successful in the way things are and not the way we want them to be or that we wish they would be. And I stand by that with this diagnosis also. I've got to find a way to be successful under the conditions as they are, because it's not going to help for me to wish I wasn't autistic. So I've got to find a way to be successful because I'm autistic. So the question I asked earlier, would I have wanted to know earlier in life if I could have or not, I'm going to address now. Now, on the positive side, I could have directed my career in a way that was more in line with my pre-wired personality. And because of that, I might have been happier without having to mask all the time. I might have been happier in my relationships. I might have been happier in my parenting. I might have been happier in a lot of ways if I knew who I was. I could have sought help dealing with it. I could have been part of groups and such that could help me to understand that I'm not defective. Just because I'm not meeting up to the world standards doesn't mean that I'm defective. Now, some of the negatives are I could have used, if I'd have known earlier, it would have been really easy to use my diagnosis as an excuse for not trying. And that's just not acceptable. So, in the end, would I have wanted to know earlier in life if I could have, so that I didn't have to wait till my 60s to find out? Or am I glad I didn't find out till my career was over and then I was in retirement? I really don't know the answer to that. And maybe that's flaking out on you, but everybody's kind of got to decide for themselves. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because I can't go back and be diagnosed, right? The things that brought me to the therapist in the first place to get diagnosed have been there all along, but I never made the effort. So it's kind of a moot question, but it's one that's interesting to explore about what would life be like if I had have found out earlier, and is that the life I wanted to have? So thanks for joining me. We'll get into some different topics in the next few videos and talk about how this affects us. I'd love to hear in your comments your thoughts on what I've talked about. And as always, please like the video. Please follow me. Uh, that'll tell me how many more of these videos I need to make, and if I'll make them continually if there's enough desire. So have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.